Beyond Blame.
Challenging criminalization.
For HIV justice worldwide.
Coming up in this webinar.
Ending HIV criminalization in the context of breastfeeding.
Science, friend or foe? Do scientific advances always help our cause?
Challenges and successes, with reports from the Ika region, Uganda, and the US.
Think global, act local, linking local advocacy with the global, and back again.
And a closing message from Dr. T.
You can post your questions to the panelists either in the Zoom Q&A text box or in the Facebook comments under the live stream. On Twitter, use the hashtags BeyondBlame2021 and HIV Justice.
This webinar is funded through a grant from the Robert Carr Fund.
Please welcome your host, Edwin J. Bernard.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Blame, Challenging Criminalization for HIV Justice Worldwide. My name is Edwin Bernard and I'm the Executive Director of the HIV Justice Network, a global information and advocacy hub for organizations and activists like you working to end HIV criminalization. But what do we mean by HIV criminalization? We're talking about criminal laws or policing that single out people living with HIV in all of our wonderful diversity, making us criminals for acts that wouldn't be crimes if we weren't living with the virus. And it's sometimes assumed that it's only the 101 jurisdictions in 77 countries with HIV-specific criminal laws that are the problem, but more than half of prosecutions take place in countries that use other types of laws to unjustly prosecute people living with HIV. Our most recent analysis indicates that at least 110 countries either have HIV-specific laws or have unjustly applied general laws to people living with HIV for alleged HIV non-disclosure, potential or perceived HIV exposure, or non-malicious, non-intentional HIV transmission. At least 50 countries are currently actively prosecuting individuals under these laws for sexual acts that may or may not risk transmission, as well as for spitting, biting, breastfeeding, and blood donation. And at least another 60 countries have HIV-specific criminal laws without recent reports of active enforcement. And then there's another 20 countries that have used general criminal laws in the past but haven't applied them since at least 2017. Now, we need data and maps like this to understand where HIV criminalization is a problem. But HIV justice worldwide is also about creating tools and building power together to find solutions. The HIV Justice Network is a proud founding member of and secretariat for HIV Justice Worldwide, the global coalition that campaigns to end HIV criminalization, run by a steering committee comprising global and regional PLHIV networks and human rights organizations. And you'll meet some of the people involved in this work on my virtual sofa in a moment. Now, Beyond Blame is our flagship global meeting. We last met online during the HIV 2020 conference. And the response was so overwhelmingly positive, we thought we'd put on an extra special Eve of World AIDS Day edition for you today, so we can see how far we've come since then and how far we still need to go. So around 300 of you from 60 countries have registered and are here with us today. Although we'll only be speaking English, we have interpretation into French, Russian, and Spanish. And we want to hear from everyone in the chat in any of those languages. If you have questions for me or any of the guests on my virtual sofa, you can either ask them in the Zoom Q&A, or if you're watching live on Facebook, you can place them in the comments under the live stream. We're also keeping an eye on Twitter, so please use the hashtags BeyondBlame2021 and HIV Justice. And after I've talked with all my guests, I'll be handing over to my co-host, Brianna Diaz, to host the Q&A session where we hope to be able to answer as many questions as possible. And now let's start the show by focusing on an issue that really should not be an issue at all: the criminalization of women living with HIV for breastfeeding.